What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So in this video, I did want to talk about the whole offline patch coming to the Crew 2 and Motorfest in the future. Now, we all do know in that showcase on Tuesday, they were talking about this a bit, and I have to admit right off the bat, this is incredible news. Now, I do have to say this though, they were talking about adding the offline patch to them, which I'm going to guess right now and say it's not going to be right now, but later on when the game is actually ending. So for example, on the Crew 2, maybe that's going to be 2027, 2028. I mean, that would probably make sense if they follow like the whole like Crew 1 thing, which I'm also going to talk about that in a quick second. And then of course Motorfest is probably going to be sometime in the 2030s unless something insane happens and they bring us the Crew 3 before then, which I wouldn't doubt that, to be honest, but a lot of people are probably saying something like, if they can do this with the Crew 2 and Motorfest, let's do it with the Crew 1. And you know what? I have to admit, that's probably not a terrible idea. Like, they probably should do that. That would probably, make a lot of players insanely happy that have bought the game and the DLCs, including myself. I mean, I actually have a disc version of it and can't even use it, so that would be pretty dope. But at the same time, there's going to be a second argument to it. A lot of people are over here like, give us the Crew 1. While there was basically not that many people on it. I actually checked it a long time ago on Steam, and this was a very long time ago. I actually think there was legit like 5 people on it, man. Like, I get it, people do want to play it and stuff, but at the same time, though, the Crew 2 is basically going to be an upgraded version of the Crew 1 in basically every single way. Now, one thing I do have to say, though, that I really missed about the Crew 1 was going to be the entire story. Like, I really did like it. One of my favorite parts from that entire story was the end of it with Alex when he was like, we don't shoot, we're 5'10s. And then boom, you actually proceed to race like a Fast and Furious movie. Like, it was just such a good game, man. Specifically the story, though, like, I did actually like having story elements to it, which I do know a lot of racing games nowadays don't tend to have those. They're more focused on like the actual racing part of it. Like, how many of you guys actually like the story that was in Unbound? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. But I am curious to know what your thoughts are on this. Like, do you guys actually want to see a full offline patch for the Crew 1? That is probably going to be an insanely stupid statement considering most players have the game, including myself, but can't even play it. I would say if you can actually add an entire offline patch to the Crew 2, at least put one back on the Crew 1 if that is going to be possible, unless something weird was happening to where they can't do it. I'm not all that familiar with like a lot of the programming stuff, so I honestly don't know if they can do it. Do let me know in the comments below on that as well, guys. Does that actually play a role? Like, is there something there that is stopping them from doing like an offline patch to the Crew 1? I honestly don't know, so I figured I would ask on that. Then again, we're also getting a full patch thing for the Crew 2, which is awesome. Which, if I had to guess, they could probably, shut down the actual PvP events. Most likely remove the summits and just add all the cars into the game. Unless they can actually make the entire summit based on AI, that would be kind of dope if that could work. Not sure if it actually would, but maybe it could. Then we're also going to get the said offline patch for Motorfest later in the future. And I'm going to guess right now and say they probably have something planned for the Crew 3 with the exact same thing. So at least that's going to be fairly positive in that aspect. Now this is also going to bring me into the next thing that is also going to be great. So yes, we're getting offline patches for the Crew games. That is something everybody wanted. And that's also probably going to be caused from the actual backlash of the Crew 1. Now I'm also thinking, guys, Test Drive Unlimited Solar Crown is most likely going to get an offline patch, and I do feel like it would most likely happen way later in the future once the game's entire life cycle is over. At least I would probably say that's most likely the best way to do it. I would also guess right now that they probably can't just jump in and add an offline patch to a game that's already focused on being online, and that's also probably going to be why they're not doing it on the Crew 2 or Motorfest, at least at the moment, because the entire game is based to be online. So the games are basically designed around racing with people, like driving around the map, doing different challenges and stuff. I mean, there's even crew challenges in there. Then you're also going to have the summits, which are completely based on racing against people. Then you're also going to have PvP, which is the exact same thing. So I do understand like the entire game being based around online like that, even though it's by far going to have its own issues being online. But now if they're actually doing an offline patch, a lot of that stress is going to be taken away from players. That way all the stuff that you might be buying in these games, or all that things that you might have ended up spending money on, you are actually going to be able to keep it. So that is a big plus. And I do have a feeling a lot of other games are most likely going to follow this suit after the insane backlash of the Crew 1. Like, I would feel like, guys, a lot of games that would actually follow what the Crew 1 did would most likely not end that well, and it could be even worse depending on what company or like which game actually had that happen. So I do feel like other game companies are probably like, oh, okay, so we probably shouldn't do that. That would not make anybody happy. If we did end up doing that with our game, it would probably make everybody insanely mad. And then we're also going to have a lot of hurt fans, people that are pretty angry with the said company, and they're not going to buy our games anymore. So that's probably a pretty good way to look at it. But overall, though, guys, I do admit this is going to be incredible news for the Crew series. I am really happy they actually did this now. It is going to be unfortunate that the Crew 1 isn't getting the offline patch, but who knows, maybe something insane may happen in the future to where they might do it. But at this rate, I would most likely say they're probably going to shelve that game, even though most of the people that do own it would probably like to jump on and play it here and there. But the one good thing, though, is if you guys are into the Crew 2 still, which I would say many people are, we do know the big update is coming out for Motorfest, but at the moment, we can all also agree that Motorfest is slightly on the boring side of content. I mean, there isn't going to be a ton of stuff to do in there, but after this update, I do think that is definitely going to change. I'm actually going to be insanely excited for it after watching that showcase. We're actually finally going to have working mirrors, which is a huge plus, and I can't wait to see what they do end up bringing in the later seasons after the 5th one in November. Honestly, guys, I am pretty dang hyped for it. But I would like to know your thoughts on the entire offline patch thing. What do you guys think about it? I would say a lot of players are most likely going to be incredibly happy. I saw a lot of positive stuff all over Twitter and also YouTube and Instagram. Even though at the same time of that, I did see a lot of negative stuff saying like, why is the Crew 1 not getting the same thing? Which I do feel like is going to be fairly valid. If we're actually going to be getting the offline patch for the Crew 2 and Motorfest, why not add something like that for the Crew 1? That would not only make the entire fan base a lot happier, but would most likely help the entire reputation of Ubisoft.